Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Giacomo. I will introduce briefly what we are going to do. Today, we're going to talk about gardens, gardening, landscapes. And I will assist you if you have got any question by chat during the presentation. But now I will introduce you Giorgio Valentini. He is the guy who will lead in this new adventure. Okay. Have a nice time.
Thanks, Giacomo. Good morning, everybody. So as Giacomo said, he prepared a great presentation on outdoors garden, the use of stones in gardens, and starting from how garden developed through history. Again, I recommend you just a quick housekeeping rules. You're all muted because there's just too many of us. But if you have any questions, Japanese in the background, they can answer you in the chat, or we can probably discuss it at the end of the speech. I'm trying to keep it short and like in 20 minutes or so max. So we start with our famous heroes of this webinar, Palladio. Uh, he was not really the protagonist of the landscape and gardens. Also, gardens and landscaping was not architectural landscaping were not evolved in the history, and especially his time, the way it is today, where we have full-blown scheme of landscaping and the urban development was more a decoration back then. But nonetheless, Palladio was always very much involved into overseeing everything, and even the garden, is part of the landscape. It's part of this architecture. And if you think about his villa, a villa is a villa because it's in a context of maybe a farm or a rural area where also the land is part of the architecture. So this is a very important part. And in this chapter here of the book, which is actually written in a sort of historical Italian, so it's also hard to read for those, for us, for myself too. But the key is that architecture is very important, and especially in a house, because that's where you're spending most of your life. So the house should be an environment that is pleasurable, that is something that you like, and especially after we spend so many times in this pandemic, stuck in our home, those of us
Giorgio,
that have a comfortable dwelling, especially in it.
Giorgio, sorry to interrupt you. The audio is not really fantastic. Can you just try to speak a little bit
Sorry,
slower?
I forgot. Yeah, let me try with the headphones. Hopefully, it's getting a little bit better. Can you hear me better now, Maria Vittoria?
Yes, now it's better, sure.
Okay, I'm sorry. So just a quick recap. It was saying that Palladio was not so much involved into the landscaping and into the creation of the garden, but as the overall architect of the building, he was certainly overseeing all of it. And back then, garden were not, landscaping was not a full-blown architectural material like it is today. Nonetheless, he believed in the importance of houses and dwelling to be comfortable, to be pleasurable, because it's where we're gonna spend most of our life. And like I said, in this pandemic, we got stuck at home, and those of us that have a comfortable and beautiful house certainly experienced a much better how you call it quarantine than those that stuck in a small apartment or not so comfortable. Going back into history, we see here a mosaic. So again, here the stone and the garden has some sort of connection, featuring Plato, giving a lesson to his student, to his pupils in the garden. So garden was very much an important part in the Greek history, in the Greek time. Here is another painting, and again, here we see how the painting, so we discussed this more, I believe was the previous one, where we look at the Veronese and Palladio and how Tintoretto, how their paintings helped us understanding history and understanding architecture. So here we see, Platone again teaching in his garden, and how the garden is an important part in the Greek architectures. Then the civilization evolved with the Romans, and the Romans were a more affluent and rich culture. So even the gardens and the villas.
Again, sorry to interrupt. Did you share the screen? Because we can't see your screen right now.
I didn't do anything.
Can you just reshare your screen if you're talking about that? Because we don't see.
Let me try.
I'm sorry.
No, I see it. Apparently, can you see now?
No, I don't.
I think it's the Zoom that gets stuck. Oh man, I apologize. Let me see it again. How about now?
Yeah, and also remember to stay stable when you talk, because I think you don't have a great connection today, because when you talk and move a little bit, the audio is not great. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. Thank you for, let me go back to where we left off. Hopefully, we were here about the Roman villas. So basically saying how the Romans had, a little bit more affluence and the means of decorating their houses, and in this case, the garden is more of an interaction between the interior and the exterior versus in the Greek time, there was a more clear and direct separation between sorry, let me get the direction for the slide, otherwise we cannot move to the next one. Okay. Can you still see the screen?
I really can't hear you. I don't know if the other, and I'm sorry to continue interrupting you, but can you just try to repeat, because I didn't get really.
I don't know what else to do here.
Okay. You stay there, it's perfect. Sorry.
Okay. This is more of an interaction, and we see that with the Roman villa, there's more arches and porches, and the inside and the outside. Certainly, there's much more communication than back at the time of the Greeks. They also had the fountains, first more to collect rainwater, but also as a decoration, as a pleasure, as the sound. And here is probably one of the most majestic example of the Roman villa. This is the Adrian Villa in Tivoli near Rome, where definitely the pools and the fountains are not just to collect rainwater, but more as a decoration and to show the importance of the prestige. Gardens were also a way to impress the guest. It's the first thing that the guests are seeing when they come into your house, typically. So that is very is another important aspect to consider. Then we go into the Middle Ages, where, and again here is a painting that explains us how the architecture and the evolution evolved. And we see here that the garden changed completely their dimension. And here we talk about hortus conclusus, meaning that basically the garden are all walled. First of all, in the Middle Age, there's more war going on among the different city and civilization. And so the reason of protection is much more important. And at the same time, there's a sort of evolution that the garden is also something that that needs to feed, not just a pleasure, because you can't really go out and harvest your food, but especially if there's a risk of being hunted or killed by enemies. So that's why the garden became more of a horticulture, where you grow your vegetables. Here are other examples, all the way to basically our hero Palladio in San Giorgio Maggiore. We saw it in one of our previous one, where and you can see here all the different gardens, all enclosed, and this has been the monks that inhabited this cloister. basically started also farming and started the medical plants. These are another view of the Palladian architecture. We can see the porches and the columns, and here, of course, is more of a decorative at this point, but back then were used more again as cultivations. And again, we can see the interaction between the stone, the natures, and how these were more of a playful background for the guests. In Padova, we see this botanical garden, and we will see many other botanical gardens. But the botanical garden are a perfect example of the majestic that you can do with stone and natures. And back then, I mean, the Venetian Republic was sort of one of the most powerful empire, and that's why they could afford garden in Padova that were beyond what everybody else could conceive in Europe. These gardens cover roughly 22,000 square meters, so it's 250 square feet of land, all decorated in garden. And although they were attributed to the architect Andrea Moroni, the actual owners, whoever put the money and the impression on the garden was actually Daniele Barbaro. And we know that he was also an architect. We met him in the second, I believe, when we talked about the Villa Barbaro with Jefferson, but also on the fifth webinar where we explained also the Palladio and the churches in Venice. So again, I mean, like anybody that has a political importance in a civilization or in a community definitely has that strong impact also on the architecture of the places. So here are the gardens today. So they're very much, pleasurable places and sites to see if you are in the area. And again, Padova is just 20 minutes outside of Venice, and not too far from Vicenza, from where our quarries are. And this is also, again, all the baluster, the bases
again,
are all
sorry. Giorgio, really sorry. Can you just try to disconnect your and try to talk a little bit, I don't know, nearer to your talking, because it sometimes is really, if you go nearer, might be that's
okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay, now it's better. You really, I think your connection is not great today, so if you can just talk, stay stable when you talk, maybe it's better. And I'm sorry to interrupt you 10 times.
Try not to move, to be like a statue, like a stone statue. Sorry about this. Yeah, I give you the I don't know what is going on.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, here we have other examples, and this is actually a typical way of how gardens were used to, and they're still laid out nowadays, with sort of a cross in the center and the geometrical figures, statues, and pathways. So were designed this way back then. They're kind of still designed nowadays in this way. This is Prato della Valle. It's 90,000 square meters, so over 100,000 square feet of elliptical square, and again is in the center of Padua. Is the largest square in Italy and probably one of the largest in Europe. And what's unique about this is not just the square. I mean, it's a square with a garden and the water all inside that. So I think it was another important, with an island also, important featuring element that you can't really see it in many other places. This you saw it from the overhead view. The 78 statues that have been done and sculptured in the Vicenza stone between the 1717 and the 1880 by different artists. So again, here the importance of stone and natures. Going back to the Villa Barbaro and the Palladian architectures. So first of all, here is still Barbaro, the Patriarch of Aquileia, prominent person and figures in Venice and all the Republic regions. He built his own villa in the mainland, and it's a pretty prominent villa. And this is probably the best one that gives and explains the interaction, although all the villa has sort of interaction with the land. But you can see here that the farm and the land are very much interconnected with the garden, and they are basically considered a single entity with the house. And that's why Palladio was not just drawing the houses, but we're drawing the houses and in his own settings, considering the garden and considering the farmland that he had to serve and maintain the house. So this one was planned with of course, the important part at the center, but two low lines that were extending with the arches that not only gives you beauty to the villa, but also gives function to the architecture, because in these porches, you can store machinery for agriculture, you can store hay once it's been cut and harvested. So it's not just beauty per se, but beauty with function. That is the key, I think, into making a great architecture, because just to create beauty that has no purpose, there's really not much to do with that. This is a detail, so you can see again that definitely, beauty requires its own, its own part. I mean, it's pretty much what we had to see in this. And this is probably one of the exceptions where Palladio actually in the same garden designed this little nymphaeum, which is the only probably of this feature that only have an aesthetic purpose more than an architectonic and anything else. Here we're going back to the south of Italy. There's really not much to do with Palladio, but I thought it was a good example just to stay in the themes of stone and garden. And this is a park in the north part of, in the Viterbo province, just north of Rome. Was commissioned by Francesco Orsini in the 16th century. And it's just a way of saying, and probably it's sort of an inspiration also for the modern park theme like the Disney, because you can see that, back then there was some sort of amusement in creating this garden. By the way, this garden became pretty famous, and the first image is the one that you probably recall with Salvatore Dali. He painted quite a few. And again, there's a connection between painting and architecture, and even in this more modern time. These gardens were not as famous before Salvatore Dali started painting them. And here, I think, is a great example. These are a mixture of different gardens from different regions. But basically, they all give you the same message that garden is a beauty that you want to wind down, you want to relax. It's an important part because, we got to enjoy life too, and we got to have fun. If you go also in the French chateau, you will see a lot of these mazes, because again, the garden were supposed to be a place to relax, to have fun, to get lost and to just enjoy nature. And this brings us to what is probably our, in our modern histories, and especially with Grassi, one of the most featuring projects, the Longwood Garden here in Philadelphia, just southwest of Philadelphia. They were made originally, I believe, in the 1800s, don't hold me on this, but they were fully renovated in 2014, I believe. With all, I wasn't working with Grassi, so I'm just going to the history here. That's why, I'm not very good with the dates, but I do remember coming across in my presentation and discussing this while I was presenting other things. And this is, again, a great place, and I really recommend. I spent a couple of weekends, and it's a great environment, also to relax and to have a day trip from your city. These are all Vicenza stone, and when they were originally built in the 1800s, I think the old Vicenza town, everybody that was working in stone was working for this garden for quite a long time. Back then, of course, there were the scalpellini, so everything was carved by hand. Probably nowadays, the same job could have been done in a matter of few months by that's pretty much what it took to do the renovations. I believe the renovation was the main fountains and a few of the other places. Here, just some of the concept. This is we're going back to the Grassi factories, and this is the garden just outside the factory, and we see this exhibition that were done actually for marble matte, for different kind of marble matte, and the idea is again to replicate Egyptian, in this particular case, Egyptian buildings like the Sphinx or the pyramids, but at the same time, pretty unique is actually this rectangular buildings that has all stone. If you notice, all the bricks here are completely different. There's no one that is the same in terms of shapes and size. And still, you can achieve a pretty dramatic image and architectures. These are examples of other products that have been commissioned as part of the catalog that can adorn and embellish the garden, and again give a function to the garden. These are just some of the pieces that have been commissioned, and we are selling not really on a regular basis because they're pretty much made to order. But the idea is that you can also, in your projects, in your houses, design the garden and think about this, maybe in using stone. And there's quite a bit of it that we can do. And this is a few pages from a catalog, which we call "and," because it's just stone or fire and flames, in this case, stone and landscape, where we want to feature. And this is, we are, of course, known for quarrying stone, but we can do more than just stone. And this is probably one of the greatest examples where we can do the barbecue or the table on top of the pool and the roof garden or whatever is typically thought about stone. We are not a cabinetry maker. We don't pretend to become one, but these are a couple of examples and of what we can do. And there's more. Sorry, before we go into that. There's more in our catalog. This is just one of our catalog, and I just want to, step out of the presentation, but just to show you what it is and what can be done with stone and even combining with other material. This, for example, is a sauna, where definitely stone is a part of it, but most of it is done with glass, is done with steel, is done with other material. This is just a different example that, are ready-made, if you like, for what it is, or you can modify it and design. This is the same table we saw it earlier, and different settings and again, this is supposed to be an example, but you can modify this full kitchens. Why not having, something for exterior? And again, these are the drawings where we started, that we proposed it, but at the same time, you can have your own drawings. I mean, the concept here is with stone, you can do statue, you can pretty much do everything from tile to everything, and all the way to urban design and urban furniture, basically. This can be a bus stop, so it can be a campus area, and all can be done with stone and other materials. These are all the different elements that we are using in our catalog, where of course stone is the most important part, but also steel, glass, and wood. So that being said, we want to finish also with Villa Barbaro. And I don't know if Giacomo want to say something more about that. It's a renovation that we are doing near the Grassi quarry. And we would like to, it's definitely a Palladian villa. We would like to have it back to this splendor that he once had.
Thank you, Giorgio. Thank you. And yes, before I thank you, Maria Vittoria. She gave me the honor to conclude this this webinar. And before I take the word, you should know the three things scare me most. One is the dentist drill. The other one is Jane Boulder, better known as Diana in the American science fiction television V. She's creepy. And another thing that scares me, it's speaking in public. So stay at your own risk. But I will share you. Giorgio, could you please close the screen? Thank you. Can you see anything?
Yes.
Okay. This is Villa Barbaran. This is a new project, a very big new project, and involves a lot of work, not only talking about the Vicenza stone, which is made in, but also because it's a very big building. And we spent a few words last time about it, that we are going to have a big restoration in terms of stone, but in terms of frescoes and so on. But there is something we haven't mentioned yet, that this garden is going to be to welcome a bee farm. That means that flowers and plants will be chosen in order to create a proper environment for this kind of insects. These are bumblebee. Don't judge me, but they are the other as bees. And another project we are going to share with the community will be, let's say, a forgotten fruits garden, where we gonna have very uncommon trees, like I know the jujube, the Irish strawberry tree, the rowan, the medlar, just to the wild cherry, imagine, or the wild apples. That imagine that in Italy we have got something like 2,000 different kinds of wild apple, and in the supermarket we normally grab just 3 or 4. So we are going to think about a project that where anyone could adopt a tree in the future. So this project will serve the community, and the fruits of this orchard will be for free. So stay tuned. In a while, we will have our website about Villa Barbaran. And this is all for now. If you have got any questions, to share in chat. And once again, thank you for attending this this webinar. I don't know what I'm talking to do, what I'm going to do with Palladion and something else in the next webinars, but I don't know. Stay tuned.
You will certainly come up with something, Giacomo.
I know.
I think if anybody has a suggestion, that's the right moment to do that. Whatever you would be, you're interested in, just let us know for sure. And thank you, Giacomo. You did a great job as always. So just
Maria Vittoria, Victoria, I have a question. Can you hear me? I'm Carol Kelly.
Yes.
It is a remotely connected connection, as I am. I'm an American who lives in Annapolis, Maryland, where we have a significant Palladian influence in our architecture, our colonial architecture. So I have personally gotten interested through travel in Villa Fornicerato, which is being restored in Montecchio, Picasino. And I wonder if they know about the webinar. I will be happy to inform Francesca Grandi that these are going on. And if there is any broader interest among Italians in what's happening in Villa Forni, I personally have tried to arouse American interest with not too much success. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol. Any exposure that you can give us certainly is more than welcome. Whatever's there, we're going to be put into that.
I will. I'll certainly communicate with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think everybody is very happy about the presentation, about the photos. And just to remember to everybody, this presentation will be published both in our website and in Georgia's website by early next week. So if you have any friends, anybody that wants to follow up with this one, just share with them our email, either our email address, and we can send a direct connection, or our website, they will find it there. Also, in the same place, you will find all the past registration, past webinar that we have done.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry for the connection. Hopefully next, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be better, and we'll have something more to discuss.
So Giacomo will surely think about something interesting. If you have any other suggestions, just let us know. And I think everybody's happy, so we can just tell hello. And thank you, Giorgio, again for your time and for your effort. And we keep in touch and see you again in 15 days. Okay?
In any case, if you want to know more about Palladio, I can set up on-demand presentations. Not a big deal right now, because I think we have explored many sides of this guy. So
for sure,
don't be shy and ask if you have got any curiosity.
Thank you so much, so everybody, and see you in 15 days. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.